Hello and welcome to Maxon Training channel, everybody. And we are just entering August, and that means it's a new sessions of Demystifying Post Productions. And today we're joined by Chad, Tony, and also Sammy. And together we'll be talking about Demystifying Post Productions that cover the creative workflow on video productions. And how do you call it? To give you an overview about what we're doing, probably it is best to show you the plan of the webinars that we're going to do throughout August. And in this week, in today, in these sessions, we'll be talking about the planning aspects when producing video, like when doing video productions. Sometimes when we are planning, things change when we're shooting. Sometimes when we're going to shoot, things doesn't go like through plans, and sometimes a you know a backup plan is needed. And sometimes the question is like, when things are not getting into plan, going as planned, what do you do? And I think that's today. That's the main tidbit of today. We're gonna look into the planning aspect of video productions. And then in the second week, we'll see into the shooting aspect, and then we'll talk about the technical side of shootings, camera settings, all the codecs that you need to choose, and all sort of that. And in the week three, we'll do the edit. We'll talk about the editing phase. And then the fourth week, I'm sorry, the fourth week, we'll talk about the grade. So if you are into color grading, make sure that you are joining us in the fourth week um, to talk about the color grading. So I think we'll do the semi-live grading on that sessions. And finally, we'll close the month with a VFX. So if VFX your thing, if you love doing adding stuff in your video, then this is it. Make sure you join week 5. We're gonna talk about a lot of like technicality and then also tips and tricks when doing VFX. But today we'll look into the details on planning and on mitigating chaos that could happen during the planning. But before I handed out the floor to Tony and Sammy today, probably let us do usual housekeeping first. So if you want to check the event hosted by Maxon Training Team, you can simply go to maxon.net and /events. And there you see like a lot of events that going on in Maxon. So we have a new Demystifying Post Productions series that is going on this month, and then also this Thursday, I think Tony will joining me again. Tony will join me again this Thursday in Maxon Color, and there we'll talk about prepping the timeline, prepping the editorial timeline, and then grading multi-camera edits. So it's a how do you call it? It's another step that you can take a look into before we go into week 4 where we grade. So I think that's connected to each other. And then we'll be at SIGGRAPH. If you are going to SIGGRAPH, make sure to come to Maxon booth and say hello. And next how do you call it? Next week on Thursday, there's also Ask the Trainer as usual. So speaking of Ask the Trainer, we have new codes for our free t-shirts. So if you want to get your free t-shirts today, make sure that you you go into this link, which is I will post into the chat window soon. And the code for today, as you can see in your screen, is creative work flows. And then by using this code, you can get you can order any of this t-shirt, one each, and you don't have to pay for the full price, but you just need to pay for the shipping cost. And if you missed the sessions, the old how do you call it, the previous sessions that we did in the Demystifying Post Productions, I think last sessions we talked about particles, right, Chad? So if you missed that sessions and you want to check it out, you can go to YouTube and simply search for Maxon Training Team. And there you can see the recorded sessions from Maxon Training Team. So without further ado, let us just start the discussions. And Tony, I think the floor is yours.
Right. Well, hello, and thanks for joining us on Monday morning. Hopefully with a cup of coffee, or it's probably your lunch break, or depending on where you are in the world. So let me share. I'm going to share my screen here, and I'm going to be showing stuff in Resolve. This is not a technical thing, but this is going to be kind of a storytelling thing about logistics and issues. And basically, you build this beautiful structure that you think is a plan, and it can get bulldozed over, and it's a matter of you grabbing all the pieces and either duct taping them back together or finding the Elmer's glue or Gorilla Glue or whatever suits your fancy. So, but you know, the idea is we're gonna talk about how things come together. I'm gonna break a few things down. I will use a couple of terms that are typically used in finishing and quality control for film and television, and those terms are creative intent, best possible, and inherent to source, or in this case, inherent to situation. So we'll place, I might revisit that idea and just kind of tell you about situations where you're either going to get exactly what you dreamed about, or you're going to find that you're going to have to get the best possible out of that situation. And the other thing is something that's inherent, and you cannot get any better than that. So with that said, I'll also introduce Sammy. Sammy, if you want to wave.
Hello.
Okay. And so Sammy helped a lot by helping me scrap this plan together, because I had a whole plan of going to this machine shop with this guy who's he rides his bike inside of it on TV shows and film, and I mean in movies, and that got derailed because he got booked on a TV show. Boom. So what happens is then on my end, stuff like everybody's time is booked, hotels are booked, flights are booked, right? So everybody is moving, the plan is in motion. And instead of the alarm going off, the most important thing that you could do is just remain calm and, you know, keep all those alarms, just turn the volume down on all those alarms, so you can convey clear thoughts. And then also when you remain calm in these situations, that's when you can really start using your mind. And half of it is understanding what pieces you can still use and what you cannot. So for instance, in this plan, you know, I had motorcycles set up, like a motorcade set up. You know, I had machine shop location set up, and when it kind of fell through, I reached out to my buddy Sammy, who lives up north in Northern California. I'm in Southern California, and we were going to make this trip, and this trip happened in Santa Cruz. So basically, the existing contact that we had kind of had to, you know, make another plan, and I'm not gonna sit there and just be focused on the plan falling apart. So I reached out to Sammy, and you know, Sammy, I didn't even know that he had this wonderful Harley. So we've been friends for quite some time. So Sammy actually has the Harley, and then you know, besides that, he knows a few other people that happen to ride motorcycles as well. I reached out to him just because of logistics, location, and just trying to get somebody on the ground early so I can make a few things happen with the existing contacts that I have. So with that said, you know, Sammy mentioned to me that not only does he have a bike, he rides, and he got friends that ride, and he also has a pickup truck. He has access to a pickup truck, which is something that we need to get our like motorcade shots. So he had a lot of the pieces to the puzzle when I just reached out initially, which was, I wouldn't say is plain luck. I said half of that is when you just keep your mind, you quiet down all those alarms in your mind, these things will come together. So, you know, with that said, you know, we went from we got going to be at this predetermined location to what friends do you have in the area? What, you know, who can we communicate with that already know you, and this is you know, my point of contact. So now we're going from first party to third party. Now we're reaching out to people, not only myself but also Sammy, reaching out to people, motorcycle clubs, car clubs, you know, the machine shops, and people that are contacts of my original contact. Because and it's borderline cold calling. So if you haven't done cold calling before, or what do you call it, like marketing over the telephone, it's not that far off, because you start off with zero rapport, and you have to get the conversation going in the correct direction. So you know, with that said, Sammy, you know, think about the first time we went to the shop, right? Or you called a couple of the bike clubs or stuff like this. Anything you could add about
Yeah,
that?
a few things as far as like calling cold calls, like you said, calling different shops, trying to see if they would invite us into their shop and accommodate us for the time we needed to accomplish our goals. There was a lot of no's. A lot of people didn't even want to hear what we had to say, and then there was a few people that where the soft skills come in and trying to find some common ground, and you know, everybody wants to know how they can benefit from the situation, if they're going to put themselves out there. And it felt like when we did finally find the shop that was going to let us shoot there, our location, and the talent that we needed to get these goals done. Um, when that happened, it was just everything seemed to be like on the fly, and uh, having somebody in charge that was pretty calm and kind of directed everything in the direction it needed to go was it was a huge difference between that and just everything being a complete failure.
I'll say this:
Yeah.
if there's anything to be said, it's not one person being calm. It's like if I'm calm, then you're calm, he's calm, and everybody's relaxed, and everybody is not looking like there's a fire in the building and we have to run out, you know, the fire exit. So it's not necessarily one person being calm. That stuff spreads. It's like if you were to yawn, everybody else is going to yawn, and then that stuff spreads.
Right.
So the idea,
It's really funny to see that you know, things like this are really interconnected to each other. Seems like, you know, the same things like in post productions as well. I thought like that the production would be like way much more how do you call it, not so flexible, but apparently you have to be flexible as well in the pre or post in the productions as well, right? If it was me shooting the piece, probably it would have been canceled.
well, there's two things to say about that. Number one, you cancel something, you're chipping a little bit away from your reputation.
You're
So
losing credibility.
yes,
Exactly.
and especially depending on how down to the wire you are. So if you can
Yeah.
pivot and you can salvage, that's always the best. I'll add one thing. You know, every time I've worked on a major, you know, set where there's a lot of money involved versus this indie situation. Now, just to put it in perspective, we're talking about the indie situation. We're talking about not a lot of money, and not a lot of time, and not a lot of manpower, right? So we're talking about, you know, a handful of people. Everybody can play multiple roles, such as Sammy producing and talent, right? And you know, everybody has to have pride in what we're doing, and you know, that is reflected on the other end. So if you're talking to people, you're asking them to do something on camera, and then the people behind you are just kind of slouching and not caring, and not moving fast and not showing it, you know. So it's, you really your whole recipe of your crew matters. So it's really a, when you do anything on an indie scale, it's really a matter of like keeping things calm, understanding there's an option all the time, and not feeling like you're up against the wall, even if you are up against the wall. So I'll move it forward with a little bit of the storytelling here and what actually happened. So instead of our overview. So now, like, here's an instance where typically a location day will be like a location day, and you don't really want to arrive there on the location day. You know, if you arrive, you know, the afternoon before and the sun's already dropping, you know, burning daylight is a thing. And, you know, with that said, half of it is like you land, you get settled, you make sure that, you know, when it comes to gear, immediately anything with batteries, plug it in. Look for the wall, look for the, you know, where you can power in all your stuff. Also, if you have like a little power generator, you know, little camping stuff, those are amazing just in case. You never know when somebody will slip up if you have only 3-4 people working with you doing technical stuff. So be prepared for those incidents. I always bring some kind of like this is a good one, like a phone charger, USB charger thing, because I have lights that charge off USB, and you know, you could charge batteries on USB. So if you look at all these things and just think you always need to conserve your power, but you always need to make sure you have a backup in case that's it. So in order to milk that time and make sure that you can utilize all the possible time, you need to make sure that you have all these things set up. So I immediately go in, look for power, get checked into the hotel or wherever we are. If it's an office space or wherever it is, go find the power, plug all the stuff up, take the stuff out of bags. The stuff that we pack, when it's packed, it looks like it all fits in a tiny bag, right? I don't like to travel with a bunch of cases that look like I'm a full production. That leads to so many things, and especially if the stuff is worth a lot of money and you're just a handful of people, not always smart to alert people that you have, you know, a big production in your hotel room. So we act like ninjas. We carry everything and kind of, you know, I use beach towels, beach bags, and then I even use just backpacks and regular looking stuff, and you know, try to hide the cases when possible. And if we have a case, you know, if it says anything that says a camera brand or anything, I got a big strip of black cloth, aka duvetine, to just throw over everything. I use milk crates. I love milk crates. If you ever see milk crates available, you know, people throw them on the street, they're worth gold, you know. So
Or apple boxes.
apple boxes, of course, you know, but again, all
Um,
these things are practical items.
yeah. Do you have a place for one question, Tony? There's a question from the audience, and I think it's really interesting. I think Brandon just asking, is there any advice if you want to shoot your first short film, but then without any budget, or maybe very less budget? I mean, you're talking about the partnership that you did with a lot of manufacturers back then, and is there any tips and tricks that you can share on that area, probably?
Yes. First thing I would say, friends. Who are your friends? This is your passion. You want to do it. Like, you got to talk to your friends. Like, you're going to find out who your best friends are and who your like mediocre friends are. Because if you ask somebody, it's like asking somebody to, I mean, I don't know if you ever asked your friends to help you move from one apartment to the next. That's like a full day affair. It's physical, it's time consuming, and you know, you're not, that's where you can define who actually is going to be there for you. So use your friends as your base. Have, you know, incentivize it, buy some pizza, buy some food. You know, it's not always a day rate, and if you're passionate and they're your friend, they understand. So I would say start with talking to your friends. I've done projects before where I bring everybody to a room and I'll buy beers and pizza, whatever they want, you know, whatever they want, and I have everything I'm talking about on the screen, and I just hit the play button and talk through it, and it's like a pitch, and you're pitching them. You're asking them to give them your time. So time and money are two huge things. If you don't have the money, but you have the time, you can make it happen. I hope that answers the question.
And shout out to Sharon as well. I think she just shared a really nice, great tip. And I think you can also contact the local university or film
Yeah,
university and schools,
absolutely.
because they also get credits doing those
And they're
type
probably
of
passionate
projects.
too. You know, a lot of it is like passion. If you're not into it, it's still art. Whether we look at it from the technical perspective or not, it's still art. So
Exactly.
yes, that's a great tip, because those people's minds are already set on, I want to do this. I want to make a film. So great tip. Um,
And
Now, what I'd say, and I'll pitch it to Sammy here. You know, Sammy not only got into the logistical element and helping produce and wrangle people and run around and do stuff that gets you outside of your comfort zone, you know, and that is the mark of you know, true talent, is when people jump outside of themselves and it can still maintain somewhat balance and not look like you're a fish out of water. So, you know, Sammy kind of hopped in, did a bunch of runs, set up our crafty table, you know, and Chad as well. Chad hopped in and like they're buying paint and buying stuff from Target and a clear acrylic and all kinds of different things. And it's just like, all right, here's the shopping list, you know, let's go. You know, there's so much to it that involves everybody's mind being in tune. If one person slips, we all got to kind of get everybody on the same page. So not having long meetings, but like do something fun, do it over food, right? At the end of the day, yeah, we're like decompressing, but we're also kind of, we got to kickstart our ideas for the next day. Coffee and breakfast are always the first, you know? So I still have my screen up here. So let me just kind of show you, I have elements of our like pre-shoot, right? Which is typically supposed to be like a location day, but because the sun is falling, we had X amount of time when everybody was there, and we still didn't have everybody there. So we kind of went skeleton crew, meaning 3 out of 5, right? And we went out to see the area, be on the ground, and we cheated and kind of grabbed some shots from the back of the car through the glass, and actually some of them made it and looked pretty good. So what I would suggest is when you can, always have a pre-shoot or a location scout. Bring a camera if you do a location scout. If you have a 360 camera, that's even better, right? If you want to brief people and get them involved, like put them in the environment, you know, like let them see what it is. Hey, we have a room, there's power plugs here, there's this here, there's a 7-Eleven across the street, stuff like that. Let them know what the lay of the land is. But, you know, in this instance, this was a little bit more expedited. So brought both cameras, right? Also, you know, Sammy brought his bike down. So in this instance, Sammy was the talent, and trying to get Sammy to be talent was kind of like telling a bulldog to be a ballerina, you know. So it was kind of like, you know, look, you know, it wasn't like stand there and look pretty. It was kind of like, look right here, look where I'm at. And then, you know, there's a little trick for it. I have this little ball here, which actually surprisingly has a bulldog on it, not to be funny. And this is from the Mini Cooper. It's the little orange ball that goes on the antenna. But one thing, an orange ball is it's a color that kind of stands out, and then it helps you lock in focus. So if you want somebody to look in a specific way, there's no faster way to get them to look at it than something that looks a little bit obscure. Hot pink, neon yellow, something like this that just doesn't blend, and then your eyes can stay locked to this. So you know, sometimes this is one of the tricks that I use. Other than that, you know, I'll show you here what it looks like when you just kind of you know, get somebody to do it for the first time. I want you to look up in 3 seconds or something like that. I'm going to count you down, and then you try it out, and it's just like something like that. And that just looks like, you know, you have a problem, like your contacts in your eyes hurt or something, and it wasn't what we needed. So we tried it several, maybe 10 times, right? And
Yeah.
you know, it's a trial and error period, right? So not to knock your acting skills, Sammy,
Yeah.
but, you know, just to show you kind of what it's like. And then, you know, we would try these different setups, and, you know, it's a matter of like, okay, the sun's going down, but what do we have? We have available light, and we had these little LED lights, and then we had Chad over there with the wand, right? And so we were doing stuff and just adding light into the scene and using stuff that we actually had while, you know, we'd get the sunset stuff, but as soon as that was done, you know, then we would just parked on the side of the road. And what do you got? You got a bunch of different things happening. You got cars coming by, you know, breezing by, and that always leaves like light streaks coming. Then you have, you know, a practical sense with Chad has this wand, right? So we have this, it's just literally, it's not a wand, it's a selfie stick with a 1/4-20 adapter on it that allows you to put anything on it. So, and so you pull out the wand, that what we like to call the wand, and then you just kind of add light into these specific areas to accentuate something. So accentuate, you could beam it on somebody's face, or you can kind of just give them a nice little like rim light. And here's an example of that. And you can actually see And this right here is log, but you can see it right here in the air. That's a light. That's on the wand. You
Tony,
can end of the wand there. Yeah.
um, before you move on, probably you want to mention what type of equipment did you use during the shoot?
So we used two flavors, Canon and Sony, and these are very typical cameras that tend to get used professionally or even on YouTube level or whatever the case may be. Canon and Sony are big in the market, and we use the Sony FX6 and we use the Canon C70. So they were both very comparable, and I say that they're both on the same level in that sub $10,000 range. And we also had the Canon R5 as like the gimbal camera. So, you know, we have the two competing brands, and we're able to get some similarity and have some harmony in the edit. And you'll see that later on. Max will be able to demonstrate on with the color.
Yeah,
But
on the grading, they will see the flexibility of those files.
yes, absolutely. So, and we'll get into metadata and why it's important to know which, you know, which goes back to you asking that question, why it's important to know which camera is used for which time. So, you know, Sammy, if you can maybe talk about what this part was like when everybody's just pointing two cameras at you. Sammy also is not professional actor whatsoever, right? And he's also kind of like thinking about the project in total and still has all these things in mind for tomorrow and the next day and the next day. So he's got that on his mind. Plus, we're also doing this. So I'll play some of these clips if you want to just talk about on your end what it was like when we're pointing cameras at you and you're just kind of like you don't know what's happening and you're just doing it.
Yeah, it was a little bit awkward having cameras pointed at you, especially if you've never really been on camera before, and seeing the different angles and look over here, do this, do that, and trying to understand what is expected because I'm trying to like give him what he wants, but also the best result of that. And he has this vision in his head of what he wants to get. So it's just, okay, do this again. And sometimes it's doing it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times until he feels he got the right shot. And it's one of the things that he kept saying is I'd rather overshoot it and have more that I can choose from than to undershoot it and we can't go back and redo that moment. So I think that was a big lesson that any filmmaker like would benefit from, is to overshoot something and make sure you have what you need to do that ahead of time. And that goes back to logistics and planning to make sure you have what you need, batteries, US or memory cards and whatnot. And also the support you need to make these things happen. It's vital. Having Chad there to that third person in this particular moment in the shot where he's waving the wand and, you know, Tony's directing him, and he's also, you know, Chad gave a little bit of insight on this because I believe he's done it before, and I had no idea what they were doing with the wand and the lighting. And then once we got back to the hotel, can I jump ahead with that just for a second?
Yeah.
So we got back to the hotel and it was like, I want to say we were out there for about an hour and a half, 2 hours at that particular spot. And then we get back, I want to say it was about 12 o'clock at night, something around that time when we finished up. And this guy is just, you know, reviewing footage and showing me, look, see here, this is what we were doing here. See how I had the light over your top of your head? This is called crowning and whatnot. And I'm just blown away, like, wow, this is what we were doing. Like, that's amazing. And it didn't make sense to me just sitting there and like looking here and looking there and doing it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, whatever it was. And then him being there in the hotel room after the fact of shooting all day and downloading the footage and reviewing it. And then he just falls asleep on a computer because he's just so into doing the project. And that was pretty awesome to see, like the kind of dedication that somebody can have once they immerse themselves in something like this that they're passionate about. So all that stuff comes out during the project for sure.
I would say, you know, I don't recommend falling asleep with your laptop on your lap. It's probably not good for you. And then also on top of that, like, yeah, you need to make sure you get your sleep. But you know, this is like when you go on a shoot, a lot of the times it's like a marathon, and it's like it's very seldom that you do get the optimal sleep while you know that you have all these things and it's a living, moving, breathing thing. Like you have this time, you mess up this time, you know, now you just lost that time. So, you know, going to do stuff, there's the anxiety of like, where do we stop? And I remember that being a thing. Is like, okay, what do you think of that? Nope, doesn't look good. What do you think of that? Nope. Now we're losing the sun. That's fine. We got lights, you know. And it's like, so in your mind, you're constantly doing a math problem, and the math problem is like time, effort, you know, what can be done, what cannot be done.
Let me jump in here. Let me jump in here. One of the things I think was very important that might not get mentioned is having those communication skills to keep people motivated when they're tired, when they're burnt out, they're done, and getting them inspired to continue and have that idea of what we're trying to accomplish here and communicating that to the talent and the people that are involved, so they know, they have an idea, like, this is our mission, these are the things we want to accomplish. And then each individual has a different personality, and being able to communicate to each of these different personalities so their mood doesn't affect the shoot in a negative way. And in fact, it all comes together, and everybody is supportive of each other and keeping them all inspired throughout however long the shoot is and however grueling it might seem, to get what we actually need. And Tony was really good at talking to different people in different languages, and I mean that in a different personality standpoint, because everybody had a different personality. We had somebody like Red that was just, I never met anybody like this person before. And then we had the guy Mike that was in the body shop as well, whole nother personality, and wrangling all that together to have everybody work so cohesively was like a mission in its own, which we did. I think it went really well.
Well, I'll add one thing to it, and you know, this is something that, you know, everybody was good at. I would say everybody kind of understood, you know. So once you kind of you put the idea out there that everybody kind of is sharing this space and everybody's like family, you know, not saying I make the whole world my family, but you know, I feel like we all you know, kind of echoed that, and that's what it was, a chain link, you know. So if you make everybody feel welcome, and hospitality is huge. If you're working with people on a team, hospitality is huge. If you start to make people feel like, oh, that's not your crafty, or oh no, stay there, wait until I talk to you. These are the things that jar everybody. If you're giving your time to something, even if you're getting paid for something, and people make you feel alien, and they don't necessarily open up, or like, you know, you're you know, as a team, you know, when you're working with these people, whether they're talent or crew, if you make them feel like welcome, and you don't make them feel like sit over there and shut up and I'll come talk to you when I'm ready. Like, you know, if that's the case, then hey, go over there. There's tons of food. You know, you don't even have to tell them go over there. Just like, hey, you know, we just got this food set up. It's for all of you. Help yourself, you know? And like, guess what? Spend some money on snacks. Snacks are such a big deal. Order food. I'm going to say something unconventional, and get some beer for the people when things are done. Give them something to be motivated about. If people don't feel like there's, you know, like they can't see the next exciting thing coming, then you just get flatlined the whole way. So if they don't see like, hey, where are the goalposts? Where's the finish line? Like, what am I excited about next? So give them that. So like, I'm no stranger to buying beers, ordering pizzas, whatever it is, whatever makes people happy. Like, if you can do that, you have the funds to do that. It's a little easier than you know, paying tenfold for stuff. Do that. That's huge. And hospitality is huge. So, but as far as, you know, this kind of night shoot setup that we have here, And you can see right here, here's the ultra wide shot. Another thing I want to add, right? You might notice that there's flares here. So this was a particular shoot for the idea of doing a demo for NAB as well. I needed to make sure that certain shots kicked up dust, flares. I washed out the lens. Like I did things intentionally that were technical no-nos sometimes. And the reason why we did it is because there's specific effects. They're gonna draw those things out and make them look amazing. So like some things I would do twice. Do
Yeah,
it once
I
the
think
intended way and the other way for the effect.
I think the same tips has been also has also shared by Matt Reeves. If you familiar with the new Batman movie, The Batman, I think in some scenes it was shot with a very vintage lens, and then they apply a Vaseline. I think it was in the car chase scene where they use like Rehouse Helios 44 lens. It's actually a photo lenses that they use for filming, but you know, they also apply like very similar technique that you mentioned, Tony. So it's like applying a Vaseline, like very thin Vaseline layers on top of your lens. Of course, there's a clear filter in front of it, but since it has Vaseline on top of it, it retains the droplets, the water droplets, when you know the water splashing into
Batman.
in
If
front
you
of the
shoot
lens.
Batman, you could put Vaseline all over everything and buy new stuff. So,
I love that movie. I really love it.
you can tell. Um, what I would say, you know, is practical in camera is great. At the same time, do the clean version. So you know, you're buying time with everything that you do. So if you know you need to shoot two sets of stuff, one with, one without. We did stuff with the lights on and with the lights off, controlled lighting and just ambient lighting. And really, you don't really get to dial in until you know that you have choices. And if you can like experiment, right? That's why, you know, Sammy mentioned it. I go back to the computer after the fact. And if you have somebody there to do the media management, if you don't have somebody there, I know it's undesirable. I'll take on undesirable stuff that sucks and wait and do all this stuff. If I can build out that time and I can multitask, I'll do it because I know that some people are just like, ugh, media management. I don't want to deal with this. So I do it because it gives me a chance to multitask and watch all the clips. So what I do is I'll try something. If I know I try it and I don't know how great it looks, when you're looking at a screen that's this big, that's why it's always great to have a monitor. You know, I typically have like a little Shogun or something that's at least 7 inches, you know, or, you know, we have the bigger monitor. I got like a 20-inch monitor as well. But if you don't have that time and you're not in a fixed environment where you can control things, and you're just out there and you just got this 7-inch thing and that thing draws some serious power, right? Think about it, try it out, you know, and then it's a trial and error thing. Like, oh, that didn't work. Oh, it's because I didn't realize how shaky this gets on
Hey,
this prime lens, you know.
you remember you brought that display screen? I want to say it was like about 12 to 15 inches that Chad had, that you set up for Chad. And I remember when we were shooting in the paint booths, I was like, what are we doing? Like, I couldn't understand really like exactly what you're trying to get. And then I hear Chad, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, oh, he's watching it on the screen. And I go back and I look and I could see it all come together in the screen that Chad was watching. And it made sense. It clicked.
That
So
sounds
that's,
like Chad, actually. Can you do the Chad voice again? Can you do his voice?
oh my God, that was amazing. Do it again. And then we shot things over and over. And then, you know, going
When he
to
saw the dust coming off the, they were buffering and removing paint chips off of a side panel of a car. And like, so I'm in one room and he's in the other and I can hear him from where I'm at. And that's pretty loud to do that. So when you have excitement like this, that stuff spreads too.
yes.
Just, you know, just to bring it back to that. So I'm sure that he's got a big smile on his face. He can remember that part now.
That would hit home right there with what you just said. So figured to share that little story.
And I think, you know, think about it like when you see the stuff, right, we do it again. I think, what was that? I even went back and we just did it even more, because when you find that perfect spot, the perfect settings, the perfect lighting, why not get a few versions of that? How many times did we do that, Chad? Just sitting there in slow motion. So you're watching it on your screen. So here's the thing, we shot a lot of that part in slow motion at high speed. So when you're doing it, playback is in high speed, so you're not seeing that yet. Then we go back and it was like sports. So we go back to the replay. Now play the replay over back to Chad, and then Chad will watch it in slow-mo, and you just watch. And I have those clips. I'll show you here, like the paint, or I think it was this right here. And then when you see this, you're seeing this in log, but you know, this right here goes hand in hand with a lot of the stuff, like the particle systems and stuff. So when you shoot stuff in camera, it looks so great. When you add stuff after the fact, you have a mix of practical and you know, the VFX, the CG that you add. So, you know, when he saw this, he was just like pretty audible about how excited he was. So, you know, we did this, and it was like, do it, shoot it, let's do it again. And you know, the guy who's actually just doing the buffer part is like, okay, you want me to keep buffing this car until, like, you know, until it just becomes hollow and falls apart? But that's what we do. We just, like, you milk that moment, get everything out of that moment that you can, because the first one might be good, the second one will be great, the third one's extraordinary, and then you'll fall back to like, all right, I've done so much of that. I got 12 minutes of slow motion buffering. I think that's good enough. And 12 minutes, when it's shot in high speed, if you do the math, that turns in maybe a half hour or more, depending on what frame rate you're shooting at. So, you know, this right here is like, when you get it, you know, you utilize it, and you just kind of like try to, you know, make sure that you don't just sit there in that one moment. But, you know, that was a lot of the trial and error, and having the time to do this stuff is really, the more that, you know, I can work on this setup, right? But I want to get it, I want to nail it. And there was a moment where we just sat there, and so we were on outside, riding motorcycles, rigging motorcycles with lights. Then, you know, we did the pre-shoot that was just on the side of the road, and that was just so we can get in sync. There was another camera, two other camera ops. There was Jay, and then there was EJ, and EJ even came with his like POV drone. That was another whole story. We'll save that for like week 3 or something, when we actually talk about the shoot. But you know, back to the whole planning thing, it was like,
Yeah.
a lot of these things, when you land in the location, you look around, right? New ideas come. Don't limit your idea, and don't limit like what you have. Just look at logistics, and take the, you know, your time is like measuring tape, and just kind of measure out how much time you have for the day, and then say to yourself, I want this much time with that. We definitely need this. We need this. And like, there's time for real time footage, and there's time for slow-mo footage, and you shoot them both differently. You can grab slow-mo shots while doing real time, but you always got to dial in the setting, relight it, or whatever it might be. And you know, there's slow-mo time, and then there's real time. As deep as that sounds.
By the way, sorry to interrupt you, Tony. There are a lot of questions in the
Sure.
questions panel
We go to
asking
the
that where can we watch the final video. I think I forgot to mention in the beginning that, you know, we'll share the final video after the edit week, so will keep it, you know, we'll build the tension, sorry, until the
they'll
edit.
have the files as well.
But if you're curious and you want to check the clips, there are available medias. There are downloadable availables, the media files, and as well as the project files in the Dropbox link. I think if you go to the maxon.net page, let me just show you quickly.
Yeah, you could probably put it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. Link. So yeah, just go to the Dropbox links, and then download the media and project files. There are 2 projects available, Premiere Pro and Resolve, so you can kind of check the directions that we're heading into.
And they're
And
also
the final
organized
video
by
will
camera.
show it in the 3rd week, right?
Yep, they're organized by camera and color labeled as well, and track labeled. So everything for C70 is on one track. Everything for FX6 is on another track. Everything that's with the R5 is on another track, and the drone is on its own track. So it's organized for you. You play
By the
around.
way, David is asking in the audience, what do you do when, you know, at the end of the day you realize that nothing is usable in your
I hope that doesn't happen. My short answer is something's always usable. You can always reverse it, crop it, scale it, you know, look for some texture in it, use it. There's a time where maybe your talent walked off camera and now you have a clean plate. There's so many ways to use your media. That's a great question. But in my opinion, there's always something usable. Maybe you left the camera rolling and there's some decent sound there. I've used so many scraps of like whenever I have done like just edits where there's not enough footage. I'm so used to that I look for every scrap. And it's not what's in your in and out points. It's really on what's on the head and tail, what's in the handle. And like a lot of the times, you know, there might be some good BTS there, might be, you know, but that's a painful thing to think that there's nothing usable. Try to think, what can I salvage versus all of that's gone? Because if you do that when everybody's money is on the line and you book these people out and they're there, you know, not all the time if you're working camera, are you ever going to see, you know, what airs on TV or what makes it to the film. Half of the time, like, you know, you're not going to see that stuff ever again. Once the camera card leaves your hand and it goes to whoever's the media manager or DIT, that's it. That's all you're ever going to see of it until you see the final product when you're on the production side. So, you know, anything usable, that's why it's good to go at the end of the day and watch it back and fall asleep at your laptop if that's how you get down. But
2 times.
Yeah, Tony, you said something earlier
that's
really
also like
cool.
answering my personal questions. You know, sometimes whenever I'm shooting, I always have one idea in my mind. It has to be like that. It's not flexible enough, and I sometimes realize, you know, whenever you shoot, you can just like shoot once or twice, and then you can create a lot of story out of that. And I think you will share that tips and
yeah,
tricks
that's
on the
definitely.
editing week, right?
I was saying something, I think. Well, like, I feel like we stepped on what you were saying.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, I was actually going to say something similar to what Max just said. You brought up a really cool point earlier, Tony, about being flexible, like how we pull off the side of the road. You know, when I don't know if that was clear, but you know, I think we were planning on shooting on a Monday, right? That was like the first day we were supposed to shoot, if I remember right. And so then we all got together Sunday and we're just going to do some initial scouting. And so then this footage when we were, I think even the stuff that you're seeing on screen right now, where we're shooting like the motorcycle ride and stuff like that. And when we pulled over to the side of the road, like that stuff was all just kind of like test shoots. And we ended up liking the test shoots. We ended up using a lot of it, but initially it was just kind of like, let's get a feel for where we might want to shoot. And so for me, I think it's kind of a good idea. What I generally do if I'm doing something like kind of documentary style like this, where it's not narrative and it's not like totally scripted out, what I generally try to do, and I would love your guys' feedback on this too, but what I try to do is like have a plan so I know I can get everything covered. But then you also want to be sure that you're not sticking so close to the plan that you can't improvise and find moments. Like when we pulled off the side of the road and we were doing the wanding, like the sun was going down and we just found this perfect shot and it was just amazing. And so then we decided to put more effort into this and make this the shot rather than continuing to scout more locations and stuff like that. And I think being kind of flexible like that is really, really key.
Yes, I think, you know, just to reiterate, I'm not sure if I pinpointed it last time, but like when you go scout, bring your gear, bring your intended gear, because like no matter what your eyes see, you know, people have the app on your phone so you can see what it looks through 35 or 50, right? But nothing better than using the camera that you have so you can see it in the actual format. And then you're doing it. Why not record it? Like, you know, you're working anyway and you have it right there and the button is right there. Like, just do it. Just bring the camera. If you don't want to bring two, we went gung-ho and we shot with 2 cameras on the side of the road. And you know, that's after we're like driving across this like coastal highway here, up and down to find the right spot that had the right shape and this one had the interesting like reveal, you know, area, and then this one has just kind of, it's you're looking at shapes. So if you're looking at the right, you got to find the right shape, and then you also need to figure out, do I need to be up higher? Do I need to like be lower? Do I want to be down to the ground? You know, is this safe? You know, side of the road, we're talking about it just like it's nothing, but side of the road is not exactly the most safe place. There was actually a gravel patch that we were on that was right here. That was not, so this was not really the road. This was off the road. Like you don't really necessarily want to be on the side of the road with like a bunch of kit and a bunch of people. You know, somebody can just plow right through all of us, and then there you go. You want to talk about something not usable? That's not usable. So like this, you know, this idea right here, you know, while we were in the car, were you driving, Chad? Was Jay driving?
I don't remember what was
I think
going
this was
on there. I
out of
think
the
Jay
back
was
of
hanging out the back
Jay
side of
was
the.
shooting out the back window.
Yeah, this was out of the back of the rental car. I think you were driving.
Yes, Chad
Okay.
was driving.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
probably why I
Chad,
don't remember. 'Cause I was just trying to focus on driving.
it's all right. So it was
I,
just like, you know, we're in the front, and then Jay is operating the camera in the back, and he's getting these shots, and they look pretty amazing.
I
You know,
couldn't believe out of the back window it looked this good out of the back window, and with the glass in front of it and everything. Like
and those antennas, you know, the little antennas that go through the back of the glass, right?
exactly.
The lines, and that's kind of what caused this, which actually looks really interesting. Is this, you know, it looks like people put filters on the camera to get this. So now you get the lights that are kind of doing streaks. So
Okay.
we ended up, these are actually the clips that we ended up using. So I'll just play through some of these, and these clips are going to be available for download. So these are
I have a
all.
question for Sammy.
Yeah.
Because you know, typically, you know, on a bigger production, you know, everybody has their own job that they do, and they just do that one thing so they could focus on that one job. But and you typically don't ever want your talent to do anything else other than just be talent. So I'm curious with you, Sammy, like, you know, being on camera, being the talent, and being the producer in charge of everything. Like, was that ever like stress? I mean, on a bigger production, that's like a total no-no. You don't do that because you want like the talent to be able to like dial in and just focus on their thing. But you're doing like you're in charge of the thing and you're on camera and like we were running around like doing errands like Tony mentioned. Like, was that weird
I
for you or
think
what?
I think a big part of that not being an issue for me was understanding what Tony was trying to accomplish, and also yourself, what you wanted to get done. Because when we went to the hardware store and we were trying to figure out which glass or which plexiglass do we get, and then we are like, okay, we need to get this glass. We need to be clear. We need the clarity to be top notch, and all of those things. When I understood that and I pieced it together in my head, I think that goes back to making sure everybody's educated on what's expected. What are we trying to accomplish? And if everybody has an idea of that, then people could take off their hat and put on this other hat and run with it. And going back to previous history, myself and Tony in the service, we didn't have, hey, you go do this. It was like, hey, if you see something that needs to be done, just take initiative, get it done. Working with people that have the right attitude and keeping them inspired and motivated to have what you're thinking about in mind so they can try and give you that. I think those are huge. Communication is like one of the biggest assets you have in a project like this, is making sure everything is communicated clear. And if there's any room for suggestion, we talk about it. And maybe it takes more time. And like I said, it goes back to him, you know, at the end of the night, you know, falling asleep on the computer, rewatching clips and figuring out, okay, I didn't get this shot, so tomorrow I want to get that. And then talking to me about it. And I'm like, okay, I know he wants to get this. We got to make sure we have these things in order to get that to happen. Then we talked and we went to the store and we're like, okay, we need to get the glass, and we need to get ponchos to cover the cameras, and, you know, thinking about the whole thing and then breaking it down into components that we can manage.
Yep.
I hope that made sense.
And you know, I'll say one thing. to tack on to that, like if there was anything that was like felt wild for him or whatever, it was when we actually like made him talent. So when he was talent, how many times did we do this stuff right here?
Oh my gosh.
Or even here. Then when he started warming up and becoming more comfortable, now you can see like
This location wasn't even planned. This was a spontaneous.
walking around and
Tony
finding it.
saw this mural and he was like, red, green, blue, there it is. Let's do that. And we just went with it. And it
And
worked.
a lot of the times it's like, you know, and then you could see right here, he's actually like really getting into it. And this is EJ just shooting our behind the scenes stuff. You know, the idea is like when like if you see somebody, like if we're gonna go do like a picnic or something, or go to the beach and we have a pop-up tent to put up, right? Is anybody a pop-up tent expert? Maybe one person starts putting up the pop-up tent, but you need 4 people, right, to get it done like quickly. So everybody grabs a corner and walks it out and starts pushing up, and that's how we kind of accomplish. So nobody necessarily is wrapped into the idea of like this is only this, because we don't have, you know, 100 people to do it. And you know, and the fact that we all can do a little bit, it kind of gives everybody a little bit of what do you call that? Everybody feels like they have equity in it. They have equity in the vision.
And an important part of that,
Yeah.
to add to that a little bit, like when with Chad, like a thing that you probably don't give yourself credit for is like you jumped into a whole bunch of different roles as well, from holding lighting to directing this and directing that. Hey, how about this? Let me give you a suggestion about that. And maybe Tony didn't think about a certain angle, or let's try it through this shot here. And it goes back and forth, and then we put it all together, shoot it all, and then we go through. Tony went through it and found it all and put it all together. And that post-production part is huge as well, because he understands from doing post how things come together to tell the story. So when he's shooting it in production, he knows, okay, I need to make sure I get this. If I have plenty of this and plenty of that, I could do all these things and match it up and tell this story to where it just makes sense.
So yeah, I think, you know, the moral of the story is like come in with a malleable mindset and something that like, if you have tools, you know, Sammy can attest to this, like how many times you know the answer, but the person that's in the middle of doing whatever they're doing, you don't necessarily have to say, hey, I know how to do this, because that takes away from what they're doing at that one moment. Maybe they want it slightly different. Like be there, be ready, be open-minded, and then like if you see everybody trying to grab a corner, you grab a corner and start pushing up too.
Yeah.
So I think that's, you know, the idea is when the plan, like I'm just gonna go back to those terms because they're also they're finishing terms. I tend to finish a lot of people's projects. And you know, when you got to go back and talk to the, you know, the producers, or you talk to the whoever's gonna broadcast your piece, creative intent, the best possible, and inherent to your source. But in this, it'd be inherent to your situation. So
Right.
that's kind of my take on it, and I hope that fills in. If there's questions or whatever, we can also answer questions at this point.
Seems like all the questions is leading into the next how do you call it, sessions. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of questions about the, you know, what type of lenses you're using. I'm
Yes,
sure you're
it
going to talk
is.
about that in the next
We'll
sessions.
talk more gear, but
So
there's
what type of codecs you're using for shooting that one? Probably we can talk about that next week.
yes.
So I think I hope that this discussion that we have here kind of like warm up the how do you call it, the discussions, so that we'll be able to dive deeper into next week, and we'll see a little bit more technicality tips and tricks to be shared next week in the was it shooting day?
Yep. Next
Yeah.
week at SIGGRAPH.
So the next week will be live from SIGGRAPH floor, and I think on that week we'll talk more about the.
We're live from the hotel room. It really depends on if we can do it on the floor. So, but yeah.
So I think since we are already in 1 hour, how do you call it, time limit, I think let me just grab the presenter from you, Tony, and let me
Absolutely.
share my screen.
While you're doing that, I'm gonna say one last thing. I think
Yes.
another thing that's really important, like, and Sammy just kind of touched on this, is like, knowing the story. Like a lot of this stuff was kind of like flying by the seat of our pants, but Sammy mentioned like how Tony just like really knew the story. So like as he's getting footage, like he knows kind of like what the plan is, and like I think that that's really important because we talk a lot about like improvising. My last comment that I made was all about just like being in the moment and being able to just like see stuff with fresh eyes and just being flexible. And that's because you can do that if you have a plan. Like
Yeah.
it's a good idea. Like if you don't know what you're doing and you show up and you don't have a plan, it's really dangerous to be like, oh, we'll just feel it out. But like
Yeah.
you plan out everything, you have a vision, you have the story, everybody's on the same page with what you're trying to do. And then that allows you to be flexible on the day and, get stuff and improvise and that type of thing. But you really have to know the purpose, and everybody has to be on the same page for that purpose to have like a really effective shoot.
So having a big picture type of plan to help you guide moving forward, right?
And scrapping elements and kind of, like I said, malleable. So something drops, pick it up, dust it off, use it. Sometimes your plan is not going to go 100%. So to grab something, even if you got to duct tape it, you didn't lose it all. You got to find out what you can salvage. And I feel like that's a better way to think than to think you lose every single thing. If that helps.
Sometimes things fall out of the sky.
Yeah. Or you just charm them until they do. This guy's a charmer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sammy. Thank you so much, Tony, for your time. Thank you so much, chat. Before we close, I would like to point the audience to the Maxon event page again. Next week we'll be talking about shoot, and then the week after that we'll talk about the edit. And don't forget that Tony will also be in Max on Color and in this Thursday. On this Thursday. So we'll talk about prepping the timeline. So if you want to know how you can prep a multi-camera timeline to go into grading, so that would be the part that we're talking there. And then together we'll kind of build the node tree, the structure to accommodate your grade in Resolve. So if you're curious about preparing your timeline to get into grading, then I hope to see you on that episode.
Which will be more of a
Thursday.
technical talk, less story, more technical.
Exactly.
If you want some technical, bring your coffee and we'll see you Thursday.
Don't forget that you can also download the project and media files, which we will be using throughout this month. And if you go to the Maxon page /events and you go to any of this post, you'll see that down there's a download project files, and it will lead you into the Dropbox files where you can download the zip. There are timeline in Resolve and Premiere Pro available along with the media, so you can play around with them. And yes, don't forget to get your free t-shirt. The code for today is Creative Workflows, all capital. And I check the chat, how do you call it, windows, so that you can just copy and paste.
Get your links inside the chat window.
Exactly. And if you want to check out other series of webinars that we're hosting, simply go to YouTube and type in Maxon Training Team, and you'll see all the available recorded webinars that we've done throughout the years. So with that being said, thank you so much for coming today. It's really glad to see you today. And Sammy, thank you so much, Tony. And we'll see each other next week.
We'll see each other later this week, Thursday.
Thursday. You and me on Thursday, right? And Chad as well.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Right,
and I wish you all a nice week. I almost say weekend. Jeez.
Yeah, you're gonna do the weekend already on Monday?
I know. Right?
We see what you're
Right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Take care. Take it easy. Off the air?